Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But it is the 13th of July, 2023. These are the stories that we'll be discussing in detail during the course of the show. We'll begin with the recently ended address to the nation of our Prime Minister, Mr. Shehbaz Sharif, in which he highlighted many of the issues that his government, when it took over, inherited from the previous government, and how they moved ahead in order to take Pakistan, bring Pakistan out of, for example, the economic crisis. He also talked about the different challenges that lie ahead for the country, and of course he at the end asked for all factions of the society and the nation to stand united as one, stop hatred and spread love. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, today concerns the Kashmir Martyrs Day. As you very well know, the Kashmir Martyrs Day, known as Yawm Shuhada Kashmir, is an annual commemoration that is held on this very day. This day is marked to honor the 22 Kashmiris who sacrificed their lives in the year 1931 while fighting against the oppressive rule of the Dogra rulers in an effort to liberate Kashmir. We are in 2023, but that effort continues now by those other Kashmiri leaders, their descendants and others who still are trying to fight for their just right to self-determination. This is going to be our second story. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns a militant attack that has happened in which at least 12 soldiers of the Pakistan Army have embraced martyrdom in separate military operations in Zob and Sui areas of Balochistan. 7 heavily armed militants attacked the security forces have also been killed. This was said in a statement by the ISP. We are going to highlight the security situation of Pakistan in our third story. And finally, we are going to talk about the flood situation in Pakistan. The Punjab Caretaker Chief Minister, Mr. Mohsin Naqvi, says the Chenab water has entered over 40 villages of the Jhang district. Evacuations have been intensified to protect the people from any damage due to these floods. And of course, at the same time, we also know that there's increased monsoon rains in India as well, due to which India has opened the waters of its rivers that enter Pakistan, and that is what has created this issue. We'll be highlighting the latest as far as the flood situation in Pakistan is concerned. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the address of our Prime Minister, Mr. Shehbaz Sharif, to the nation that ended a few minutes back, in which he highlighted many different issues, whether it be the situation that they inherited, their government inherited when it came into power, and how they have managed to take Pakistan out of the different crises that it was engulfed in. We've been joined by Aniq Zafar. He's a political analyst. Aniq Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. How important was this speech, this address to the nation by our Prime Minister?
Thank you very much, Khalid. Usman. I think this is a very significant address by the Prime Minister, since there was a lot of speculation in the last 1.5 years whether the government will be moving to the elections, whether there will be caretaker government, whether there were rumors that there are chances that the term of the National Assembly may be extended, because there is a small little constitutional clause which allows that under emergency clauses. But it is quite apparent that the government and all the parties which are part of this coalition were very committed to hold elections in time, and now the Prime Minister has confirmed, and most of us who were keenly observing the last few months' development could assess and guess that definitely the government and the allied parties are moving towards elections, and now it has been confirmed. It is very significant again because one of the key challenges that this government was facing was the economic challenge, and it has been addressed considerably by restoring the health of the foreign exchange reserves of the country.
All right, now speaking of economy, the Prime Minister during his address said we sacrificed our politics to save the state. They could have gone the easy way out like the previous government did, but they did not. They took the tough decisions in order to save the nation and take the nation out of the economic issues that it was confronted with. How do you foresee all the work, the hard work that has been done by this present government that has been highlighted by the Prime Minister during his address to the nation?
I think that there is no doubt about it that the government had a few options when it came into power in April last year. One option was to immediately go into elections, and the other option was to first address the major challenges which the nation was facing. As you mentioned, rightly mentioned, the economic challenge was the major challenge. And the government decided that it will first address those issues. There were structural issues. There were issues of Pakistan losing its credibility in the eyes of the multilateral donors because of the previous government's steps and decisions which were detrimental to the national economy. Those were populist measures which damaged Pakistan's credibility. So the government had to take the tough route, introduce some tough measures which were harsh for the common man.
But they were also harsh politically. Aniq Saab, they were also harsh politically for the coalition government. They could have taken the easy way out and, continue to be politically relevant and strong. But they took the hard way out, despite the, the implications on the politics that it had.
Yes, the impact was going to be on politics. Obviously, when you take measures which increase hardship of the common man, there were complaints of inflation, and somehow or other in Pakistan, a key indicator is considered the conversion rate of dollar, and that was also a consideration.
But the fact is, look at the end result. Look. I mean, I'd like to look at the end result today. When you look, we've got the 3 billion SBA from the IMF. The first tranche of 1.2 billion US dollars has arrived. We have the rupees gaining vis-a-vis the dollar. The KSE 100 index is climbing. Only good things are happening. We had to endure tough times. The government also knew that. It knew that there would be tough times, but the end result would be sweet. And now we are seeing the dividends of that hard work that is coming. How important has been the role of the friendly countries that the Prime Minister also mentioned, whether it be China, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or the United Arab Emirates?
Pakistan was facing a major credibility crisis in the Committee of the World. Our friendly countries were also not very happy the way we were handling things, the way we were handling the foreign policy, the way we were handling our economic policy, the way we were handling our regional politics. So all these challenges had to be addressed one by one. And thankfully, the Prime Minister and his team have very successfully handled all those issues, restored our confidence with the friendly nations like Saudi Arabia, like UAE, China, and even managed to bring around IMF, which was unusually harsh in its conditions. But finally, as you said, the final end result has been very, very positive. This month we have received 4.2 billion US dollars, which I think one of the highest ever in Pakistan's history in terms of 1 month foreign reserves increase. So this is very significant.
Let's talk about other indicators as well that the Prime Minister mentioned. He talked about the Fitch rating. He talked about the Freedom Index that has improved for Pakistan. He talked about the SIFC, the Special Investment Facilitation Council, that has been established in order to increase the investment in Pakistan. This is a massive investment initiative. How do you see these initiatives as well?
These initiatives, again, as I said, that these initiatives are ratings, everything are indicative of the confidence that the government has right now in its ability to overcome the challenges, and also bringing in all the stakeholders on one page, so-called one page, as this has become a very, very sort of a negative term now, that whether it's a one page or not, but the question is that most of the friendly nations were complaining to us that there is no continuity in our policy, right? So these initiatives like SIFC and all, and bringing all the stakeholders to one platform, giving an indication to the world that from here onward there will be continuity in policy, and we are open for investment, and initiative will give guarantee to all the investors that their investment will be safe, they'll be able to make money, they'll be able to help us restore our economy and also generate jobs. So all this will have a long-term impact. There will be short-term impact. Then there will be long-term impact. And we hope that by the next year we will be literally on track to become a major economic player.
Inshallah, Aniq. Zafar Saab, also I'd like to, add the budget that our Prime Minister also discussed during his address to the nation. He talked about different factors that were included in the budget that were people-friendly, including the Kisan package, tube wells on solar energy, the youth programs, IT sector, the concessionary and interest-free loans for the youth, women empowerment. They are just some of the, elements of this current budget that are people-friendly. How important and how difficult was it also for the government to make a budget that under the current economic situation would still be people-friendly?
I think this was handled very, very professionally and very smartly in terms of politics as well as in terms of economy, allocating major resources to where it matters. We are a country which is heavily agriculture and rural. We have to support our rural economy. That will in turn support our industrial and urban economy. So there are a number of initiatives which may not be sufficient right now, but they have set a tone. The moment our foreign exchange reserves improve, our tax collection improves in a few months, I believe the next government will be able to allocate more funds to all these initiatives.
All right. Final question to you, Aniq Zafar Saab. Our Prime Minister, while ending his address to the nation, asked the people to stop hatred and spread love. Be one nation. He said this is what our Allah Almighty and our Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also preached. How important is this message of unity, of this message of stopping hate and moving towards a unified country?
In terms of politics, one must understand that in politics there are different views, there are different positions, policy options, which different political parties support. But all these differences should be expressed in a civilized manner, and people should have the national interest as a priority when they are expressing their differences. This has been a problem in Pakistan in the last couple of years, that politics has become hate-filled, the political discourse has become very aggressive, and we need to get out of it so that we as a nation can move forward in a positive direction.
Thank you so very much, Aniq Zafar Saab, to have joined us, to have talked to us about the address of our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Saab to the nation that ended a few minutes back, in which he highlighted many of the important factors that the current coalition government inherited and how they move forward. And now, if we look at the current economic situation, it is moving at a very rapid pace towards improvement. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns the Kashmir Martyrs Day, also known as a Yawm Shuhada-e Kashmir. It is held every day on this very day, of course, and we remember what happened in 1931 when 22 Kashmiris sacrificed their lives in fighting against the oppressive Dogra rulers. More in the following report.
Despite Modi government abolishing July 13 as an official holiday to mark Kashmir Martyrs Day, Kashmiris living under Indian occupation will join their brothers in Azad Kashmir and elsewhere to observe the day when Dogra troops slaughtered 22 Kashmiris on this day in 1931. Complete shutdown is being observed in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir with a march towards the martyrs' graveyard at Naqshband Sahib in Srinagar, where the martyrs of July 13 are buried. Call for observance of the day has been given by the All Parties Hurriyat Conference and supported by all pro-freedom leaders and organizations. Rallies, seminars and conferences will be held in Azad Kashmir, Pakistan and all major capitals of the world to pay tributes to the Kashmiri martyrs. On 13 July 1931, Dogra troops killed 22 Kashmiris, one after another, outside Central Jail in Srinagar during the trial of Abdul Qadir, who had asked the Kashmiri people to rise up against the Dogra rule. At the time of Namaz-e-Zohar, a young man started calling Azan and was shot dead by the Dogra soldiers. Another youth took his place and he too was martyred by the troops. 22 youths sacrificed their lives till the completion of Azan. Since then, Kashmiris observe July 13 as Kashmir Martyrs Day every year. In Foreign Office press briefing, Pakistan reiterated its support for Kashmiri freedom struggle and reminded the world of grave human rights violations being committed by occupying Indian forces. In his statement on Martyrs Day, President Arif Alvi paid glowing tributes to the martyrs of 13th July and stressed for the peaceful resolution of Kashmir dispute in accordance with UN Security Council resolutions and aspirations of Kashmiri people.
Dr. Owais bin Wasi, who is a Kashmiri leader, joins us in the studios. Thank you very much, Dr. Owais, to have joined us. Dr. Owais, this day is very significant because the fact remains that we are in 2023. This happened in 1931. Almost 100 years have passed, 90 years more or less have passed. Despite that, the struggle of the Kashmiri leaders to liberate their land, to fight against the oppressive rulers still continues. How important is the significance of this day right now in 2023?
You know, a century, 92 years has passed. But still, I think there are two variables which are constant. Number one is persecution is constant. Domination, hegemony, all these things which provoked that uprising in 1931, that is same. And the other variable is the resistance of the Kashmiri people, that is also remain not only the same, but it has been intensified. So I think that after 100 years around, after 1 century, if the resolve of Kashmiris, if the freedom sentiment of Kashmiris could not be diluted, so if history is any guide, if we look from the prism of history, I think it dictates clearly the vision and future that this sentiment might not be subdued by this subjugation and by the illegal practices which is committed by India. So this is very important because in this day we reaffirm the pledge that we continue the same struggle which started in 13th of July 1931.
When you talk of 13th of July 1931, do you feel that that day was the beginning of this whole freedom struggle of the Kashmiris against the oppression of the rulers that continues to date?
Exactly, that was the formal beginning, because there was the pent-up anger against the Dogra despotic rule, and the volcano was there because there was imposition of exorbitant taxes and this land acquisition, confiscation, no right of land, and also there was a simmering resentment and uprising in the part which we call current Azad Jammu and Kashmir. So that the culmination was 13 July 1931 when 22 people they sacrificed their lives, and that was the beginning and which continued till now. In 1947, unfortunately, India inherited the same mental, India inherited the same, this kind of ill spirit
of the Dogra rulers.
Of the Dogra ruler. And since then, since 1947, if you see that some of the statistics are that 100,000 people they got killed, but I think that there are much more if we include Jammu, because there are 300,000 people they got exterminated. Lot of people they dislocated, and the sacrifices of the Kashmiris based in Valley. So that is that we oft quote. But I think that for the silence which is there in Kashmir, some people, especially the ones which toe Indian line, which they might think that this is normalcy, this is peace. But I think that they are quite mistaken, because in the if you see the history, this is the silence of graveyard. This is not a normalcy.
In this situation,
and it can erupt. Even not only the resistance camp, but the pro-freedom camp, even their pro-freedom camp, pro-India camp, Dr. Farooq Abdullah, He says that this is the volcano which can erupt at any time. Those are the people that they were serving their interest, PDP and National Conference. So I think it is quite evident, and it can erupt at any time.
All right, Dr. Wasi, I'd also like you to explain a little bit to our viewers on who exactly was Abdul Qadir Ghazi and how important was his struggle that continues to inspire the Kashmiri
He was,
youth.
in fact, the person who was in Kashmir, and he was working with an Englishman, and he was on leave, spending vacation in Kashmir. But the moment when there was a gathering, political gathering, in which he made a very spontaneous and aggressive speech in which he called for defiance against the Dogra rule. And after some 3-4 days, he got arrested, and there was a trial. And this trial also continued, but when the day 13th of July came, at that time, thousands of people, they gathered outside the Srinagar jail. And when some of the people, they entered into the compound, and there was a resistance. And after that, when there was a time for prayer, one of the persons, he rose and he recited the call for prayer. And this is also a unique incident in Islamic history, that a call for prayer that was completed by 22 people. It was started by one person, he died, then one by one, and one after the other, it continued. So it indicates two things. One is that the Islamic or Muslim identity that is deeply entrenched and deeply rooted in Kashmir struggle. And the second thing is that the people, the valiant Kashmiris, that who didn't stop by the Dogra oppression, they in fact, by this incident, they in fact, it marked their resistance, and it epitomizes their bravery and their
set an
valor.
example for so many others to follow. And the latest, of course, one of the big ones was Burhan Wani, for which we mark the 8th of July as well as Resistance Day. Burhan Wani, I mean, he also laid the foundation after Mr. Ghazi to also highlight the atrocities that India has been perpetrating on the Kashmiris. Coming back to Abdul Qadir Ghazi and going to Burhan Wani, and then looking at the situation in the Indian held valley now in this very day, do you feel that the current Modi government's oppression is even superior or more aggressive than that of the Dogra rulers?
Yes, unfortunately, it is more deadly. It's very grave, because if we look at the steps taken by Indian government led by Modi, started in 2014. So there is a consistent pattern. For example, that there are a lot of people, they got killed during this era. There are a lot of people, they got blinded by the use of pellet guns. There are a lot of people, they got arrested. They are the political prisoners, but there is no right to trial. They are behind the bars. And the people, they are behind the bars, and their lands are confiscated by the government. And there is no government in place. Even previously, that government was not the exact representative of the people of J&K, but now only one person, governor, is the person who is making all these decisions. So if you see, and not only this one, so I think that if we see the statement of the President of Genocide Watch, so out of 10, 8 parameters they have done for the genocide. And he is the same person who predicted the genocide of Rwanda in 1994. He is the same person, he is predicting that after the 9 stages in which extermination starts. So after 10. So such kind of grave and grim situation, if you see, not with the perspective of Kashmiris or with the perspective of Pakistanis, but with the perspective of independent researchers, independent thinkers, independent, for example, Noam Chomsky said it. For example, Arundhati Roy said it. So if we look at all these things, the situation unfortunately very grim, very grave. But what I see that the silver lining is that despite all this oppression, all this persecution, the
spirit of the Kashmiris
still remains.
And intensifies with every passing day, whether it be in the form of Burhan Wani, whether it be in the form of other Hurriyat leaders that continue under house arrest or in jails or in incarceration. Despite that, the will to fight for their right to self-determination continues. But when you look at the situation now, post 5th of August 2019, when Article 370 was revoked, do you feel also that now that the whole, the petition against the revocation is being heard in the Indian Supreme Court, which we don't know which kind of result it's going to have, is there going to be an internal turmoil within India, not of the Muslims, not of the Kashmiris, but of the non-Kashmiris who also understand the plight of the Kashmiri people in the Hill Valley?
Unfortunately, the people who are living in Kashmir, especially the non-Kashmiri people, there are some saner voices which raise their voice. For example, there is a Natasha Cole. She is a novelist and she is an academic. She keeps on raising voice against Indian oppression in Kashmir. But they, through these movies and through these different Kashmir File and other such discourse that is being generated by,
and even the BBC documentary on Modi, remember?
Yes. So I think that there is a kind of little hope from this quarter. But this Supreme Court that you have referred, I think that they have this agenda that their agenda was to bring about the demographic change in the valley, and after that they might restore statehood. And after restoring the statehood,
they will ask for a plebiscite, and the plebiscite will take place. In fact, the whole demography will have changed.
Because if you see the issuance of domicile certificates, if you see the amendment in land rules, and the other initiatives for delimitation commission, in which they have redrawn the boundaries of the constituencies. So all these, these steps were taken, in fact, to install Hindu chief minister in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Because when the alliance between PDP and BJP, that alliance was staged, but later on it got dismantled and it suspended. The reason was that they wanted to install the chief minister, because in the state, chief minister is everything. Chief minister is the final word. And after that, they want to perpetuate their illegal and illegitimate and illicit moves that Modi government intends to do that.
Now, Dr. Wasi, when you look at the situation, when you look at the uprising, when you look at all the fights that, whether it be the Kashmiri youth, the children, the women, the men, even the elderly are waging against the oppressive rule of the Modi government for their right to self-determination, and you look at the world, you look at the major countries across the world, what does their silence tell you?
In fact, this is the criminal silence, because what they profess, what they advocate, what they say, there is a brazen violation. There is a clear contradiction between what they profess and what they practice. For example, United States of America, she was part of all the UN Security Council resolutions. United Security Council resolutions, there is a Statue of Liberty, and the current US administration, Biden administration, they should look the origin of United States of America. They should see the writings of Thomas Jefferson about liberty, about freedom of speech. But when we see the red carpet welcome of the butcher of Gujarat, I'm not saying they themselves said, and this kind of welcome if they give, and in their joint communique they say that this is the family in the country which has become a bottleneck into the progress of the whole South Asia. Look at why SARC is not progressing, because of this conflict. And who is responsible? India is responsible.
SARC has been sabotaged by India.
Sabotaged by India. So I think that for the geopolitical considerations, for the economic interest, for the curtailment and containment of some emerging power, if humanity or the human concerns are compromised, I think this is the question mark for all P5 in particular and for the larger community. And when in 1945 this institution, United Nations Organization, when that was established, the primary purpose was to establish peace in the world. And after 75 years, look at the progress. It raises question about the existence of this institution.
So if you feel that there are questions that are being raised about an institution, don't you feel other parallel institutions should come forward, like the SCO, for example, like the OIC, for example, and play their important role?
Of course, because if one institution, if it defeats the purpose, there is a room for activating the other parallel institutions and creation of new institutions, because if it fails to resolve the two very important internationally recognized disputes, Kashmir and Palestine, then what is the purpose of existence of that institution? So and we can also see the contradiction that the same United Nations, the United Nations Human Rights Council in 2018 and 2019 issued reports, consecutive reports, and in which they in fact accepted it. And previously in terms of United Nations resolutions they accepted, but they couldn't materialize what they have adopted, what they have
Because maybe politics and economics have a precedence over human rights in certain aspects, as in the case of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. But then in this case, how do you view all the efforts that have been made by Pakistan?
The efforts made by Pakistan, that is quite appreciable, quite commendable, and people of J&K, they have realization, despite the pressing problems Pakistan is facing, political and economic. So this is in fact very positive, and it gives very positive signals to Srinagar that despite a very difficult situation, Pakistan always stood by.
Yes. Politically, morally, diplomatically, and will always be there for its Kashmiri brethren. Thank you so very much, Dr. Owais bin Wasi, to have joined us in the studios, to have talked about this very important day that, in my point of view, and I'm sure you agree with me, laid the foundation of this whole freedom movement of the Kashmiri leaders and the Kashmiris in general against any oppression that continues to this day in 2020. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. Let's come to our third story, ladies and gentlemen, that concerns Pakistan's security landscape. We know of 12 soldiers of the Pakistan Army who have been martyred in separate military operations in Shob and Sui areas of Balochistan. ISPR, this has been said by the ISP in an official statement, and it has also said that 7 heavily armed militants have also been killed in this encounter. Pakistan's security apparatus is extremely strong in the fight against all such elements. More in the following report.
Pakistan has been grappling with the challenge of militancy, but entire nation is committed to combat terrorism because peace was gained through the sacrifices of thousands of Pakistani citizens and gallant security forces, demonstrating the capability and resolve of security apparatus to uproot the menace of terrorism. Security forces thwarted a terrorist attack on the Zob garrison, and 5 terrorists have been sent to hell during the clearance operation. According to ISPR, at least 12 security personnel were martyred by terrorists in an early morning attack on the Zob garrison in northern Balochistan, and another attack in the Sui district. This was the second attack on security forces in Zob. Earlier, on the 2nd of July, militants attacked 3 checkposts of police, levies, and frontier corps on the Zob Dera Ismail Khan highway in the Sherani district of Balochistan. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif paid tribute to the martyred soldiers. He said that their sacrifice for the homeland would be remembered forever. Security forces and the nation remain resilient and determined to thwart all such dastardly attempts of the enemy aimed at destroying the peace of Balochistan and Pakistan. There is urgency of coordinated regional counterterrorism efforts to deny terror outfits any sanctuaries and hold accountable all actors responsible for harboring terrorists.
Now, to discuss Pakistan's security landscape, we've been joined by Abid, Latif, Sindhu, who is a senior analyst. Sindhu Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Sindhu Saab, the martyrdom of these 12 soldiers is the military's highest single-day death from such an encounter this year. Before that, 10 soldiers were also martyred in February this year. What is it all pointing towards? An increase in escalation from terrorist outfits or something else?
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. Actually, Balochistan is actually a very different phenomena as far as the the terrorism or these type of activities concerned. Since the independence of the country, we have seen the waves of low-lying insurgencies in Balochistan. It was there in 1960s. It was even there in 1950s, 70s, and this is the latest one in which the different terrorist organizations which are actually have a subnational agenda like BRA, BLA, BLF, and BRG, and the conglomeration of all these, actually they have now trying to create a situation or create a sort of an environment where they can depict or they can tell the takers of their political agenda that there is actually a need of some sort of a political arrangement to tackle with them or to bring them to a place where they can actually dictate their agenda or their whatever they want to implement. Actually, we have seen in last few days, rather last 2-3 months, we have seen a spate of terrorist attack on military forces. Just yesterday, we have seen that in a cantonment of Balochistan in which the terrorists attacked and then they just withered into the mountains and they were chased, and most of almost 5 of them were killed. And this also happened 2 days back also. So Balochistan, actually whatever is going on in Balochistan is actually, we cannot take it in isolation. It has its root in history, it has its roots in geo-economic condition of the place, and it is also linked to whatever is happening across on both sides of the Balochistan, one on the Iranian side and other on the Afghan side. So this phenomena, whatever is happening, it has to be tackled in a wholesome way. It has to be tackled in a way that the complete concept of political terrorism is to be catered, while we have to dispensate and we have to take on these elements in a comprehensive way.
All right, when you look at the second quarter of 2023, Sindhu Saab, the fact remains that not only Balochistan but Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has also been the center of terrorist activities such as this. What is the reason behind? I understand you talked about Balochistan, but what is the reason behind the surge in terrorism in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa?
Yeah, actually, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we have seen that since the time that Afghan Taliban have taken over in Kabul, and they are trying to govern these territories, especially the Winterlands or the hinterland of Afghanistan, which is actually mostly a tribal area and which is an area which is not even in control of the Afghan Taliban. Actually, the warlords and the local commanders and the local rulers in the shape of some Maleks and other prominent people, they have the sway over those areas. And once the same sort of things once are perpetuated against Pakistan in terms of interferences, in terms of disturbances on the border, and especially along the Durand line and Afghan-Pakistan border, and Pakistan raised the issue, the Afghan Taliban says that they have very little control over those people. And because of this reason, again, the Afghan territory, especially along the disturbed areas where we have our border also, our tribal areas also, there is a sort of resurgence of Taliban, which is also linked to our part of the Taliban, that is TTP. So actually, the main cause of the disturbance or the resurgence of this phenomena is, I would say that the enemies of Pakistan who are, hell-bent that the political situation, the security situation and the economic situation of the country is and they would like that it will remain in a, God forbid, in a straitjacket where Pakistan continuously and perpetually face these challenges. So I think those enemies of the country, they are again trying to stoke those elements, and they're again trying to reharness, and they're trying to regroup those people to again take on their targets and take on these multifarious activities inside Pakistan.
All right. Now, Sindhu Sahab, also, you talked about the TTP. The TTP as well as the Baloch Liberation Army, the BLA, both have been designated as terrorist organizations by the United States of America. And they are also behind the bloodshed in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan and elsewhere in Pakistan as well. In your point of view, what needs to be the contour or the contours of a roadmap to counter these terror organizations?
Right. You see, all these type of activities in which the insurgents are involved and in which the fifth columnists are involved, every war is actually won through a combination of three things. One is the tactics, the other is the geography, and the third one is the technology. And the fourth one, if I may add, is the cultural influence or the cultural overtone which is applied over all these three things. So we actually, once we have to, take on these contours, and if we want to actually stabilize this region and counter this spate of terrorism which is coming across from Afghanistan, I think we have to take in account that we have to make inroads not only in the political setup which is there in Kabul, but also to these warlords who are actually administrating and who are actually ruling and controlling the adjacent area which is there along the Pakistani border, number one. And number two, we have to boost the economic activity inside Afghanistan. We all know that almost half of the eatables like oil, like sugar, like flour, everything goes from Pakistan, but it goes in a very informal way. It is smuggled out of that. So we can actually try to formalize these things. And number three, we should be engaging with the people of Afghanistan the way once the allied forces, the combined NATO forces was there, India was trying to engage with the people of Pakistan. They were trying to make schools there. They were trying to, they already, made hospitals, roads, and these types of things which are there to actually engage the public mind, or which would engage the people of the Afghanistan. So despite doing everything, despite having, entertaining the Afghan people, despite helping them for about 3-4 decades, still there is not that type of a relationship between these two people where they can say that we are a neighbor on which they are dependent and with which they should have a very cordial and good relations. So I think as far as the kinetic aspect is concerned, we are already, our armed forces and our troops on the border, they are already alive to this. But the social aspect and the socio-economic aspects, I think we have to, a little bit concentrate on that and take measures which are also visible and which should take us to the heart of the Afghan people.
All right. When you talk of measures that need to be taken, how do you view the security landscape of Pakistan, and what do you feel is the current indication as far as that landscape is concerned? When you look at reports such as from the Pakistan Institute of Conflict and Security Studies that says the first half of this year, the first 6 months of this year has witnessed a steady and alarming rise in incidents of terror that have claimed the lives of 389 people across the country.
Yeah, the security landscape of the country is right now, it doesn't give a very good picture. It is rather pretty bad. The reason is that, again, as far as you have already mentioned, on the Afghan side, we have a lot of disturbance, which is again being stoked by the Taliban factor. On the Balochistan side, we have again the insurgency, which is again being stoked by the outside players, and also by the combination of these organizations which are joining their hands to actually challenge the state of Pakistan. And as far as on our eastern front we are concerned, again the Kashmir side and the our northern area sides, although the troops are already not engaged in that way, but again, there is a lot of preparation which is there on the Indian side. And again, on the political and diplomatic front, again, our enemy, especially the Indians, they are trying to isolate us diplomatically. So if we see this landscape and we see that how we can, actually try to make or try to manage this difficult situation, number one thing is I think we have to concentrate on our internal issues. First of all, our IS situation is also getting, going to a gray area where the rate of crimes in our cities, in our, those areas where the footprint of the state is little mild, like the area of along the river Indus, or the areas inside the Balochistan or the tribal areas. I think that is also linked to I would not say the inefficiency, but the very low presence of the state there. And again,
Sindhu Saab, I'd like to have a one phrase response to the two questions that I'm going to ask you. First of all, in May, the founder of the banned Baloch National Army, Gulzar Imam Shambe, was arrested by security forces, and he expressed remorse over taking up arms and said he wants to take up peace. Do you feel this is a process that could have a logical and positive ending with other leaders following suit? A small answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the problem in Balochistan is actually, I think, in my mind, it is more of socio-economic nature. We have, there is a Kachi Canal which is being dug for last 30 years and it has not been completed. If that is, it is one of the mayors. If that is completed, almost 4 districts of Balochistan and over 2 lakh acre will come under irrigation and will come under agriculture, which will actually engage the youth of Balochistan in those economic activities. And I think these are the mayors engaging the local people of Balochistan and also appreciating this phenomena in which the people of, especially the youngsters, the youth, which is being misled by the enemies of the country. I think that is a very good approach, and that is the way that we should be engaging those people, actually addressing their socio-economic woes, which I think has been neglected since a couple of decades.
All right. Finally, I'd like to understand what our Foreign Office spokesperson said in the latest briefing. She asked and urged the Afghan authorities, again the incumbent Afghan government, to involve themselves in order to stop the terrorist activities from happening in Pakistan. As they had said in the very first address of the Afghan interim foreign minister, he had said that their soil will not be used for terrorism against any neighborhood country. Do you feel there will be some kind of a response from the Afghan side in order to stop this once and for all, or do you think this is going to be a wait and see policy?
I think there's going to be a wait-and-see policy because whatever we have been telling to the Afghan government in Kabul, they are not heeding to it. And whenever we, actually try to make or we try to build a pressure and we try to actually reinforce this argument time and again, they say that they have a very little control, as I've already said, over those areas which are adjacent to Pakistan, and those are under the warlords, which actually they don't identify, but they made one pretext or the other. I think that is, we have to wait and see, number one. And number two, if those interferences or those bases or those jump-off points are identified from where in the adjacent of the border or in the vicinity of the border, we identify some element, I think we should take some initiative in some military way under the norms of international norms to engage those people and eliminate those things once for all.
All right. Thank you very much, Abid, Latif, Sindhu, senior analyst, who have joined us, who have talked to us about Pakistan's security landscape in the wake of this incident that has happened in Balochistan, in which 12 soldiers have been martyred. Let's come to our last story, and that, of course, concerns the flood situation as far as Pakistan is concerned. The caretaker Chief Minister of Punjab, Mr. Mohsin Naqvi, has said the Chenab River water has entered over 40 villages of the Jhang districts. Evacuations are underway as we speak to protect the villages amid this flood-like situation. The We also know that the northern states of India, where the catchment areas of Satluj River Ravi are located, have witnessed torrential downpours, and that is the reason they have opened the waters into Pakistan. That is why the water enters, and that is what causes the floods in Pakistan. The Met Department has also forecast another spell of monsoons from the 13th of July, that is from today, to the 17th in the upper and central parts of the country. The PDMA has also talked about Okada, Pakpatan, Bahawalnagar, Wazirabad that have been placed on high alert in response to the flood situation, and that also the necessary preparations have been made by the PDMA. Relief camps have been put up in different districts. We need to be one, and we need to help those in need. That is the basic essence of any such disaster that could and I hope never happens, but in case, we need to help those who are in need, and that is what our government organizations as well as our armed forces are doing. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories, segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Allah Hafiz.